You are now tuned in to the Chaotic Culture Podcast.
It's the KKP on your mother flipping airways. Hear the name ringing through the halls and the stairways. You were listening to a pod that can segue. All the latest topics guaranteed to fill your headspace. It's a safe place to voice your opinion. Say what you feel just like you're a kid again. Kid to pro and friends, black as obsidian. Chaotic culture, that's the world we living in. So what's the word?
Man, it's been a long time, ladies and gentlemen, but I'm officially back. I apologize for the 2-week break, but some things were happening, but I did not want to once again go without giving you guys another episode and to, continue talking to you guys. Once again, I appreciate all the support. Goodness gracious, I cannot talk right now, but anyway, good morning, afternoon, and evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another edition of the Chaotic Culture Podcast, the pod where chaos rules and black culture is supreme. The Chaotic Culture Podcast is brought to you by patreon.com/Chaotic Culture Pod. Please be sure that you subscribe to the Patreon account for some bonus episodes, content, and of course, to help keep the lights on. And once again, you can subscribe for as low as I'm dropping it down to now $2. Once again, we appreciate your support in our endeavors. It's just me, I don't have my co-host with me. They may come on, they may not. We'll see. If they do, great. If they don't, we're all adults. We got life. But this is a special episode for me because this is literally the 5th year anniversary episode. I've officially been doing this podcast for 5 years now. So this really is an important milestone for myself and hopefully for my team. Granted, we're a little late, obviously, because the actual anniversary is June 2nd, but still, it's important for me to release this episode because we have reached an important step and an important process. And I say all of that to say that, the Chaotic Culture Podcast is trying to expand, obviously. I want to be sure that I have the necessary tools to give you the information, to give you the content creators and all of the black business owners, and to give them all a platform. I want to be able to grow this podcast into something incredibly, incredibly special. And the only way to do that is just to, of course, start making more business decisions. So before that, of course, let me go ahead and introduce myself. For those who don't know, if you have not tuned into this podcast before, this podcast will deep dive into modern black culture and how millennials, Gen Z, and maybe Gen Alpha, I guess, can navigate the crazy parts from finances, black business professionals, black business highlights, community content creators, home ownership, HBCU sports, anime, wrestling, black nerddom, and especially black music. Once again, for those who don't know, live from the 410, I'm the host and the creator of the Chaotic Culture Podcast. This is your boy, Ked the Pro, a.k.a. the Calculating Millennial, a.k.a. the Encore.
Can I get an encore? Do you want more?
A.k.a. your favorite toxic adjacent king, Ked the Poet, Ked the Closer, all that good stuff. 843 is me. Baltimore's the place to be. Always chaotic, never toxic most days. And back again, once again, with your favorite black culture highlights and black culture shenanigans. When my co-hosts, if and when they do show up, of course, we'll be sure that we give them an introduction. But as of right now, it's just me all alone in the chair, in my pad, in somewhere in Baltimore. I won't tell you where, but yeah, you already know the vibes. Anyway, it's been quite a while. I took a week off to go to DreamCon, and then, of course, I came back from DreamCon, but took a week to recover because I definitely needed a week to recover, guys. It was a lot going on that weekend. DreamCon was indeed a blast. I had a great time. It did come with some very, very solemn moments. And that's kind of what I wanted to talk about as far as like my mental health. But at the same time, I feel great. I'm doing great. From a physical standpoint, work is still work, but I'm taking new steps to be sure that I'm protecting myself at work and that I'm not overexerting myself and hurting my body. That is one thing that I've really, really, really wanted to focus on. And of course, trying to see if there are any new opportunities out there. One of the things about me is that I don't like staying stagnant. I always want to grow, not only professionally, but also personally. And so, with that in mind, I just wanted to, give you my mental health check. To be honest, this week on my mental has been rough. And it stems from a few things. The first thing is mainly about this podcast. Now, have probably have been vulnerable with you before, but I definitely wanted to take a moment now to tell you how I've been feeling as of late. And honestly, there are times where I really just want to quit. I I cannot stress that enough, man. Listen, content creating itself is hard and podcasting is hard. But in my personal viewpoints, there are times that I just wanted to quit. And it's a myriad of reasons. One, you don't get a huge audience sometimes. There are episodes that have like almost 800 views, and I'm like, wow, that's really good because I'm still a very young podcast. And then there are episodes that are really important that maybe only have 10 views. And it gets frustrating at times. I'm not the biggest social media, or I don't have the biggest social media presence anymore because of my job and the nature of my job. And I don't like being on social media 24/7, especially on certain apps like TikTok or Twitter/X, because it really is a toll on your mental health with all the red pill stuff that we've been seeing every freaking day. And I'm going to try my best not to cuss. But anyway, from the stuff that you see on these apps, it can really be a mental toll on your body and on your mind, and especially your spirit. And it's just like, man, why do I want to do this? And especially with the attitude towards podcasts, because we have so many of these red pill podcasts that are out here that aren't speaking truth to power, but would rather prop up propaganda in order to poison your mind. It really just makes things very, very frustrating, because you're like, yo, I want to use my platform not only for the good of myself, but also for the good of others. I want to show people that Black people are thriving in this community, and that we as a whole can continue to build stronger relationships. But not only that, also, I want to have fun, man. I want to see Black people become streamers. I want to see Black people playing video games. I want to see Black people owning their own business, owning their own homes, selling homes. I want to see Black entrepreneurs doing their things. I want to see Black people in the community and going against the grain and going against all the negative stereotypes that surround the Black community. That is something that I built my podcast for. But it is so tiring, and it is so frustrating and so debilitating when I get on the internet and I constantly see podcasts that just are brainless, mindless, and don't contribute anything to society other than to push stereotypes, propaganda, and narratives that are ultimately debilitating and ultimately have a negative connotation for the Black community in general. And even if they don't purposely do that, they still come with that baggage. There might be some good podcasts out there, but they might say some wild shit on that podcast that'll make you look at the camera or make you look at their video like, what the hell? Where did that come from? And this is why podcast mic should be banned. And seeing all of that really just kind of makes me like, am I really doing this for my love? Am I doing this trying to fit in? It makes me question if I really wanted to do this. And I love doing this, but seeing all those red pill posts and seeing that, unfortunately, when certain Black men and Black women on top of that get podcast mics, it's like they don't use their critical thinking and their emotional intelligence. It's just they say whatever they feel comes to their heart because they know it'll be controversial enough to get clicks. And that shit bothers me. Excuse my language. It really bothers me. And so now, me being a podcast, I don't want to call myself a podcast, bro. God, that's such a negative connotation. Me being a podcaster, I have to fight against that, as well as deal with the toll of creating a podcast, as well as trying to figure out how to continuously engage and move forward and to be revolutionary while creating content. I'm just spilling my heart out. This is me 5 years in. When I started in 2020, I didn't think that I would get to this point. I knew that I wanted to do something. I knew I wanted to use my voice. I know I wanted to be a positive influence in a community that is often bogged down by negativity. And yet I did not expect for me to be able to make it to this stage. I have evolved, obviously, this podcast. Now, I've got a professional mic, I've got a professional camera. I'm not recording using uh, I'm not recording directly onto Anchor, obviously. I'm still uploading to Spotify because Spotify owns Anchor, but still, I'm not using that USB mic and passing it back and forth. I'm not using Voice Meter to try and record our voice. I actually have a built-in system now that I can use in order to get the sound out. I don't necessarily have to split my episodes on Audible anymore. I can literally just upload the video to either Spotify or YouTube. Things have been made so much easier. My RSS feed is clean. I can now upload episodes to YouTube and Amazon Music and iHeartRadio and Apple Podcasts. Things are a lot easier, but still, just knowing what is going on out within the podcast community itself, it can be a toll. And also trying to create something positive, but still needing a lot of engagement and still trying to find ways to get that engagement. It's like another job. Granted, I like doing it, but now I'm trying to find a social media manager because the burden is too great. I can't do everything. And shout out to my co-host. This is nothing against them. We are all adults, though. All of us, every single last one of us is an adult. Every one of us has our lives to live. We each got things that we have to focus on. Two of my co-hosts have kids. One of them's in the military. One of them is in school. The other one's trying to do music. So I just have to take into account that, if I want this to be successful, I have to bring in some more people that can help build this podcast to where it needs to be. And so with that, I say that I cannot give up and I won't give up. But there are times that I've definitely felt like quitting. Also, as a 34-year-old Black male, I've also come to realize a few things about myself. Me personally, the person that you see in front of the camera, this isn't a front. This is who I am, obviously. But I feel as though I have a different personality about me that when it comes to being like super assertive and super aggressive, I'm still trying to find that person. It's really, really difficult for me to say that because there are certain things that I have wanted, that I've yearned for. There are certain things that I'm just like, man, I really want that. And I wasn't aggressive enough to get it. And then when I don't get it, it's like I beat myself up like, dang, I should have been more aggressive. Dang, I should have been more assertive. Especially when it comes to life. Now, there are times where I have been, super assertive and super aggressive. And it worked out for the better. And then sometimes it worked out for the worse because it might have been something that I didn't need. But oftentimes I find myself very, very timid and not aggressive enough. Like, you know what? I'll fall back. I'll let things play out. I'll just kind of like go with the wind. And sometimes that works, but ultimately, I don't think that I can live my life just continuously being somewhat passive. I've got to find more assertiveness, especially at my big age, in order to make things happen. And as I've said before, it's not an everyday or an every time thing because there are things that I've wanted, that I've really gone after. But the things that I haven't gone after, I have felt some sort of regret because I felt that if I had just been more of myself instead of backing off, then things will be a lot better. Especially when it comes to this life thing, man. Like when it comes to certain jobs, I felt as though if I just been more aggressive, I could have got that job. Or had I just been more aggressive, I could have got that car that I wanted. Had I been more aggressive, I could have had that award that somebody else got for, their podcast and whatnot. And that's something that I have to overcome greatly. I've got to start putting the podcast out there more often. I've got to start putting myself out there more often, because otherwise I'm just going to be in this little pocket and be cool. And I don't want to do that. I want to be able to expand. And it might be a fear of not growing too quickly, but mainly a fear of if you get new eyes, maybe, a lot of people won't like my product. But at the same time, I have to think to myself that I can't please everybody. I have to do what I think is best for me and my platform. I'm not here to please every single person. The only person really that I should be worrying about pleasing other than myself is the man above. And I really have to take that into consideration. I have to consider what's pleasing to God and what's pleasing to myself. And if it's not pleasing to God, then it wasn't meant for me. So I have to live with that. The other thing is that I've also realized that there are still some parts of me that need to grow up, honestly. Especially during DreamCon, there were incidents. I won't speak about them publicly. Won't say any names. But I've realized that there are certain friendships and relationships that I almost damaged because of my own insecurities. And thankfully, I've come to realize, man, if I continue down this path, I'm going to lose out on some great friends and some great people in my life. I've also realized that there were some mistakes that I've made in the past, and I should have been more assertive in owning up to those mistakes. Granted, that doesn't mean that every mistake I make or every friendship that's gone needs to be reconciled. Because some people are here for a lifetime, and then there's some people who are only here for a season. That being said, me personally, there were certain actions that I should have took that would have had a better result. But because I didn't take those actions, I almost damaged friendships and I almost ruined relationships. And I can't live like that. I can't. Despite my own shortcomings, I have to realize when it's time to man up and just let things be and move on to the next chapter. Obviously, there are some things that I'm still wrestling with internally, but that's not for everybody to know. It's for me to fix. Between myself, my therapist, and my Lord and Savior, I have to make sure that I stay on the straight and narrow and I'm doing right by the people who I genuinely care about. So, with that in mind, if you're watching this program and at any point in time that I've ever hurt you or said something awful out of anger or out of frustration or out of jealousy, if there's something that I did that might have rubbed you the wrong way about me, I want to say that I apologize. I'm sorry. Genuinely. I'm still learning. At our big age, we say that we should know who we are. And yes, I know who I am. That doesn't mean that I don't make mistakes. That doesn't mean that I don't have faults that I'm continuously trying to correct. Doesn't mean that I don't fall short. That's the beauty of living, and that's the beauty of adulthood, I guess. There are still some things that we're finding out about ourselves, and we will probably still find out about ourselves until the day we die. But I just wanted to be forthcoming and upfront about my actions and the things that I have done. I want to always continue to be a genuine person and a force for good. And I pray that I'm able to stoke some form of change in our community and just amongst my friends. I hope that I'm leading, with love and with kindness. And if I'm not, please just let me know so I can correct the behavior. If I don't see it myself, I'm a very self-aware person. If I realize that I've made a mistake, I will be quick to correct it. I had to correct some mistakes this not this past weekend, obviously, but I had to correct some mistakes for DreamCon weekend. I've had to correct mistakes before DreamCon. It's life. But once again, like at any point in time, if I have hurt you, I'm genuinely sorry. With that in mind, let's go ahead and move to some of the topics for today's episode. And let's talk about wrestling real quick. First and foremost, shout out to R-Truth, aka, shout out to Ron Killings, aka R-Truth. Definitely back within WWE. If you watched Money in the Bank this weekend, that was like the biggest, I guess, quote unquote, shocker is that his deal was expiring, obviously, and WWE didn't have plans to renew it. But because of fan backlash, because of locker room backlash, I'm thinking, and because of other wrestlers seeing like the backlash, like WWE reverse course, obviously, some people thought that when he returned that Money in the Bank, it was all a work. No, it was not a work. They genuinely were going to let him go. But because of the love that people had for this man, he was able to renegotiate his contract and come back to WWE. So I pray that he is given a final run that is worth the years that he put in for WWE and just wrestling in general. I know that he's 53, almost 54 years old. So yeah, his time as a wrestler obviously is very, very limited in scope. But I'm just hoping that WWE lets him go out as like a future Hall of Famer and someone that has truly like the admiration and respect for the business and within the business, because the way that they let him go, it's like, no, he's not just any normal, ordinary worker. That man put in work for WWE for, shoot, we can go all the way back to the Attitude Era from 1999 or 2000 to 2002. And then all the way from 2008 to now. This man put in a combined total of 19 years of work for the WWE, whether it be as K-Quick, R-Truth, and now just as Ron Killings. So I'm excited that Ron Killings is back in WWE, and hopefully he goes out on his terms and not somebody else's. Also, if you watched Money in the Bank, shout out to Trinity Fatu, aka Naomi. She is now Miss Money in the Bank. That's what I'm talking about. Well deserved. Glad that she got the briefcase. And I know that they had that clip of Big E was telling her, about her journey and whatnot and how he's so proud of her. And she kind of had to lock in character and tell the audience to shut up and that she don't need them. She really told them shut up because she was going to cry if they kept going. I saw it in her face. She was like, if I don't tell them to be quiet, I'm break. So a big shout out to her. Also, we are in the middle of the NBA Finals. Obviously, it's not the final matchup that I wanted. It's the Oklahoma City Thunder and the Indiana Pacers. And, Tyrese Halliburton hit that game-winning shot in Game 1. Game 2 is currently going on at the very moment that I'm recording this podcast. I'm literally watching it on my other screen as we speak. So I do apologize if you see my attention divert from the camera over here to the other screen, but looks like at the moment, OKC is up by 15 points. It is 27-42 at the time of this recording. This is not me saying that OKC is going to win this game, because truthfully, I don't know. I kind of do not want the Pacers to win, even though Aaron Nesmith is from Charleston. However, if he wins, I'm not mad, because another Charlestonian would bring home a chip to the city. Shout out to Chris Middleton. But still, I am definitely a Shai Gilgeous-Alexander fan. So I would like to see OKC get one, even if it is, OKC. But anyway, that being besides the point, that is the update for the finals, obviously. And that is the wrestling update. Also, if you did not watch Worlds Collide between WWE and AAA or AAA, please do yourself a favor and watch that show. It is available on YouTube for free. And when I say that they tore the house down, if you have never seen Lucha Libre wrestling, please do yourself a favor and watch these matches, man. They were absolutely phenomenal. Man, shout out to El Hijo de Vikingo versus Chad Gable. That was the main event. And wow, that might be match of the year for WWE. Like that, Chad Gable, look, despite the character or quote unquote characters that he plays, and whether you believe in the conspiracy theory that he is El Grande Americano or not, look, he really, really, really put on a fantastic match. And he was definitely the MVP of the weekend because he not only had a great match that during Worlds Collide, but later that evening participated in a Money in the Bank ladder match, and he definitely put on a show, if you believe that Gable is El Grande. But anyway, yeah, that's my wrestling update. So as far as anime, I have been on my One Piece binge. I'm finally in Dressrosa. I'm going to pace myself with that because I know Dressrosa is long as hell. And I think most of the arcs after this are going to be incredibly long, with the exception of like Zoe and Levelly. But yeah, we got to get through Dressrosa. Then we get Zoe. Then we get Whole Cake Island. Then we get Levelly. And then we get Wano. And those episodes are incredibly long from what I've been told. I know that Dressrosa is like 118 episodes. I don't know how many episodes Whole Cake Island is. I think it's like 90. And then Wano is going to be like 190 plus episodes. Like, good God, pray for me. Either way, also some anime updates. If you have not been watching To Be Hero X on Crunchyroll, please be sure that you watch that. That is a great Chinese donghua. And it is, I think that's donghua, because I was thinking Korean, but Korean is manhwa. So yeah, it is a great Chinese donghua. Please be sure that you watch that. It is a phenomenal show. Also, Windbreaker Season 2. Yes. Yes. And yes, a million times. Yes. Those two are definitely shows that you should be paying attention to if you don't pay attention to anything else. I'm still watching Gundam G-Quax is the official name of that series. It's a little choppy, but I still kind of enjoy it because, and it's maybe just because I'm a mech fan. And then there are other animes that I haven't picked up yet just because I kind of want to focus on those core animes right now. But still, I highly recommend that you watch To Be Hero X, and please, please watch Windbreaker. Like, yes. That's all I'm going to say is just yes. It's worth it. Trust me, it's worth it. So, let us move on into our Act 1 topic. And, all right, guys. I can't believe that I'm addressing this. But I wanted to address this because of the shenanigans that I saw. Never in my 34 years of living did I really think that I would have to talk about Harriet Tubman conspiracy theories. That is mind-boggling. Why am I even discussing this? This is one of the problems that I have with social media, and this is especially one of the reasons why you have to be careful what you see on social media, because not everything that you see is going to be facts. And then, look, all right, I gotta show you this video. But before I do, just bear with me, y'all. Bear with me, because it shows that we need to open the schools for real. Like, I kid you not. Please open the schools back up. Goodness gracious, man. Okay, all right. Let me just get to it. Let me give me a sec. I gotta share this for y'all so that y'all can actually see this. I'm gonna play this video, and this isn't the video that I saw that was questioning it, but this is just the reaction. So just pay attention.
Bro, Shawty said Harriet Tubman didn't exist.
Ever since I found out Harriet Tubman is not a real person.
Then y'all gonna agree with her and start saying, yeah, cause how were slaves going through tunnels? How did they dig them?
Hear me out. That shit does not make any sense. Why would you be taking slaves underground in tunnels?
Yo, we being serious right now, bro? Y'all believe that the Underground Railroad was actual tunnels? The first Shawty then goes to say, oh, the woman we call Harriet Tubman was actually an agent for the United States, and that wasn't her real name. It was all a lie, bruh. Harriet Tubman got rid of her slave name. I thought this was common knowledge. Google is free. And yes, Harriet Tubman was working with the North to get slaves out of the South. Can't blame the CIA for this one, bro. It's like the Emmett Till thing all over again, bro. You see how easy all the stuff I put up was Googled? Like, come on, bro. Harriet Tubman wasn't real.
Open the schools. Open the schools, man. Open the book. I know that, especially in the South, man, like, this is crazy. That is absolutely insane. Like, why would you get on TikTok and say some foolish-ish like that? And apparently she got back on and apologized, but still, you allow that little pocket of misinformation to explode. And now you got somebody else on TikTok talking about why would you have slaves in underground tunnels? Like, whoa, what? What is going on, folk? Are y'all not using your medulla oblongata right now? Are we being serious? I got to talk to the parents real quick. Like, are y'all not teaching your kids Black history actively? Is what's going on in the homes? I know that we can't really depend on the school system, especially in the South, because God forbid, Oklahoma's ranked, 49th? South Carolina's 45. And all the other Southern states are just ranked incredibly low just because the GOP don't care about education, because they found a way to game the system in order to dumb us down. But still, I hate that I had to just breathe into the mic like that. You mean to tell me that you came up with this conspiracy theory that Harriet Tubman was not real because you didn't realize that her birth name was Araminta Ross? That she was called Minty as a kid? That she adopted the name Harriet from her mother? And that Tubman was the last name of her husband, John Tubman? Are you serious right now? And are some of y'all so brain dead that y'all really thought that the Underground Railroad was actually underground? Those are the thoughts of a 5-year-old. What are we doing, guys? What are we doing? What are we doing? What are we teaching our kids? To the grandparents, what were you teaching these adults? There is absolutely no way. My mom did not teach me Black history in my home just for me to see some shit like that. I'm sorry, I had to cuss. My mom did not sit me down and go through Black history drills just for shit like this to go viral on the internet. And of course, Harriet Tubman worked for the government. She was literally as he said, was literally a spy for the Union, and a scout and a nurse. Open the schools. Open the schools. Harriet Tubman did not escape slavery and free hundreds of slaves by herself. And, well, I won't say by herself, because she actually worked within a networking system. Well, obviously, the Underground Railroad was an anti-slavery network, obviously. So she wasn't by herself. But Harriet Tubman did not do all of that work to free those slaves before the Civil War and free slaves during the Civil War just for shit like this. And if you have an issue with the education system, that you're not getting all the facts about your Black history heroes, please, I implore you to go to your local library and open a damn book. Or go on the internet and buy an ebook and read it or listen to it. Download you a Black history quiz. Test your knowledge. Because that right there, that is just ignorance personified. That is how misinformation wins. That's how red pill wins. And that's exactly why, unfortunately, in the United States, most people don't read above a 6th grade level. It's shit like that. Y'all are willing to believe everything that you hear on the internet. But the problem is that this shit is easily Googled. You can easily go on Google and find information about Harriet Tubman. All of her shit has been documented, photos documented, her actions documented. It's all there. Unfortunately, and listen, I am a believer of Jesus Christ. Let's not get that twisted. But I'm just going to say that in cases of Harriet Tubman, her actions are more documented than the life of Jesus was. In part because I say if you read the Bible, we only have documentation of Jesus' birth, him as a 12-year-old in the temple, and his ministry from the time he was 30 to 33. We don't have anything else about Jesus' lifetime within the Bible. You have to go outside of biblical references to try and see if you can find anything about the life and times of Yeshua. And it's very, very scarce. But that was 2,000 years ago. Harriet Tubman died in 1913. That's only 112 years ago. It's still very much documented, especially with the technology and the information systems that we have. Jesus, keep me near the cross, man. When we see stuff like that, or when I see stuff like that, that is just really, really upsetting, because all it takes is for you to go to Google and just Google it. If you didn't know Harriet Tubman's real name, that's fine. It's easily Googleable. I say Googleable like that's a word. You can easily Google it. You can literally find information. Oh, Lord, I don't know what's going on with my phone. Hold on. Shut up. Because apparently it activated when I kept saying the word Google multiple times. So anyway, just this information is easily verifiable. Easily. If you're an adult listening to this and you have young kids, if you're a Black adult listening to this and you have Black kids, I implore you to please read a Black history book. Go to your library. If they haven't destroyed all of the books or burned all the books or banned all the books, please be sure that you go to your library, find a book on Black history, study it, read it, quiz yourself, quiz the kids, teach the kids. If your school still has African American studies, please be sure that you enroll your kids. Please be sure that they're taking the course. Because that right there is crazy. Absolutely insane that I even had to address that. Man, I worry about y'all sometimes. I really worry about it. And what's crazy was that it was Black people who were saying that. I could understand if it was some red pill white person or some red pill MAGA person trying to question the validity of Harriet Tubman. I would get that. I would understand that, because they live in their own little world. They live in a very ignorant world that any different viewpoint that you may have, they're not going to listen to it, because they have in their heads what's real and what's not, even if there's proof against the contrary. However, a Black person saying that is so discouraging and so disappointing on so many levels. I need to get off this because I'm going to keep ranting about it. It just doesn't make any sense to me why this was a thing. I don't know. I don't know. All right. I'm going to do one more thing and share one more thing before I get up out of here, because I don't want to be here too long. Again, I got a game to watch. I got other things I got to do for the podcast. And on top of that, people still need to rest. And I just want to talk about something that I saw online, actually. And I just want to, I guess, test the temperature. This happened a couple weeks ago. And it's actually from a podcaster called Deontay Kyle, who does the Grits and Egg podcast. Shout out to Deontay Kyle. And the reason I want to share this clip is because what he said here wasn't wrong. And what he addresses is intersectionality and accountability. So I'm going to play this clip, and I just want people to, I guess, I want to see how y'all feel because I know how I feel and I want to share my thoughts.
may not harass women. You may know how to take rejection. The majority of men that most women deal with do not.
Yeah.
And you are accountable for that as well. Because I don't got time to figure out which white people are nice, which white people aren't racist, or da 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 da. I have to go on the actions of the group.
Right.
The group as a whole and the history of that group as a whole tells me that they are a danger to me and they are not to be trusted.
Right.
And if you can understand that as a black man and your stance towards white people, then you should absolutely be able to understand women's stance towards you.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a war on you waged by women. Actually, the war get a little thicker when we start talking about it from the perspective of a woman and the greater society of racism and white supremacy being waged against black people, and then the patriarchal society being waged against women. So they have to deal with two elements. One of those elements we don't have to think about. And honestly, we're perpetuated.
Mm.
And it's perpetuated against us young to look at women as objects.
Right.
You know, to look at women only through the lens of a sexual desire and not as the human being that they are. And when you understand how to deal with women on a human level, you understand how much women will enrich your life.
Mm.
Amen.
Amen.
Hmm.
Amen.
That look, man.
You want to turn it up a notch?
Yeah.
Get you a good woman and get you a good black woman in your corner.
Amen.
Hey, man, you want to see your life turn up?
Hey.
And see, this is the thing, though. It's a privilege, bro. It's a privilege. You know what I'm saying? We often disregard the power of our black women. The spiritual essence that they're gonna bring to things, the knowing, the seeing, you know what I'm saying? Also, too, imagine it. They have to be hyper vigilant because they have to be constantly scanning the room, making sure that they're in a safe situation.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? When we think about these kids who were clearly in Louisiana having the time of their fucking life because they graduated, and we think about white people's reaction to Black joy.
Oh yeah, that's
it's not about civility. It's not about decorum. They don't like to see us happy.
That's what it is.
Now, how often are women just having a good time, and here come a nigga trying to ruin their fun?
Yeah.
Let's just be honest. You can call it pandering, but if I was up here caping for white women, you wouldn't even mention that word. If I was up here caping for Hispanic women, you wouldn't even call it pandering. Only when we take pride and show love to black women do you call it pandering. Get your motherfucking mind right. Use your cabeza.
So the reason I shared that is because he actually shares a valid point. And for me, all I wanted to ask is he wrong? Now, some of y'all who are red pill might get on here and try to, preach that you're holier than thou and that you don't do certain things. Really and truly, if it don't apply, let it fly. If you know that you don't perpetuate patriarchal systems, if you know that you don't attribute to the consistent degradation of black women and that you are always uplifting them, if you know that you do what you're supposed to do, not because someone told you, but just because you know internally that that's the right thing to do, why would you even argue with him? Look at it like this. He said this like it. He really made a great point at the very end. It's only pandering for black men when we try to protect and love on our black women. All of a sudden now it's pandering. And if you looked at those comments on X, you would see so many people getting upset just because of what he said. But obviously it's X. The red pill motherfucker, excuse my language, dang it, I cussed again. But the red pill folk, yeah, of course they get mad. Of course they got caught out because they're not able to hold themselves accountable. They try to dodge accountability like it's crazy. They try to dodge accountability like a boxer dodges a punch, or they try to dodge accountability like we Dragon Ball Z and Goku is dodging ki blasts. All he's saying here is you have to be accountable for your actions and just know what perpetuates those stereotypes and what perpetuates these patriarchal systems are things that we have to get ourselves away from. And especially when it comes to our Black women. But it ain't just Black women, it's women in general. There is a reason why some of them react the way that they do to certain men in the first place. It's because in all of history, we try to say that women are emotional because they cry. But truthfully, if we look at the violence against women, most of it is perpetuated by us, by men. And that's not just within the Black community, that is within all communities. It's funny because I think this was said in Boys in the Hood. Doughboy actually said that if God was a 5-letter word, obviously, but if God was a woman, let's do it like that. If God is a woman, and I'm not saying that you don't have to believe in the divine femininity, because there are people who do worship God as mother and father, let's be real. But in his eyes, he was just saying that if God was a woman, there wouldn't be so many wars. If a woman was in charge, there wouldn't be so much violence. Because ultimately, women have that nurture and that care, and they have the ability to help you grow and whatnot. And that's not to say that men don't perpetuate that, but it's a difference between pretty much diving and, I don't want to say diving, that's a bad word. Let me just say what it shows is that there are men who know how to get in touch with their feminine side, and they know how to deep dive into their femininity, as opposed to always projecting their masculinity. You have to have that balance. And so I say all of that to say that what he said was not wrong. And then it's just crazy that why is it that Black women are the ones that have to always, it seems like, oh, we're always pandering to them. What do you mean? That's a Black woman. I came from a Black woman. Of course I'm going to protect her. Of course I'm going to have her back. Especially if there's some racist asshole out there trying to dog her with stereotypes. Of course I'm a stick up for him, especially if it's someone in my family. What you mean? I literally was birthed by a Black woman. How is it pandering if I'm protecting my own, but it's not pandering if it's a white woman, or if it's an Asian woman, or if it's someone of a different ethnicity or race? He's absolutely correct. There might be some more, it might be more complicated than just what he said, obviously, but the overall goal is for us to get rid of these systems and not continuously degrade our Black women. That's all that he's saying. That is it, at least in that clip. And the crazy thing is that even after that video, people still said that he was pandering, and he had already called them out on it. He's like, y'all only call it pandering because we're talking about Black women. He literally predicted what they would say, said it in the video, and they still said it. And once again, that's why I say that most people in this country don't read above a 6th grade level, because your listening and your comprehension skills are clearly zero. It's like y'all can't process an intelligent thought or a realization. It's like you always just have to be right. You can't let anybody change your opinion, no matter how wrong it is, or you be given new information and you still want to hold on to that thought that you are still correct, despite the fact, to the contrary, that he's just giving you some more facts and some more information showing that, hey, you could be absolutely wrong. But no, you don't want to do that. You just want to continue to be right and forget anybody else who says otherwise. That's how you don't grow. That's how you stay stagnant as a person. That's how we continue to perpetuate violence against women in our communities, because we're not willing to strip ourselves of that negativity and strip ourselves of white supremacy and strip ourselves of those patriarchal systems and be reborn as someone who can care for our Black women, who can care for themselves, who can teach our sons and daughters how to coexist within our community without having to perpetuate violence against each other as they get older. These systems that are in place, these patriarchal systems, these things that were established that may not necessarily have been established when we came over here, or maybe they were, they have to be stripped from us. We have to strip ourselves down to our, I'm trying to get this thought out, but all that I'm saying is we have to be stripped of all of these negative things in order for us to truly succeed as a community. It's about taking accountability. It's about intersectionality. Again, just because you're a man doesn't mean that you can't dive into your femininity. And just because you're a woman doesn't mean that you can't dive into your masculinity. The problem is you don't want it to become toxic. You do not want to dive into toxic masculinity. Because ultimately, that is the systems that were built in order to keep us in a stranglehold. Men learn it from men. Some of the women learned it from men. And some women learned it from other women who learned it from men. As a ways and means to keep us from success. That's all that I really wanted to share with you guys. Let's free ourselves from the chains of toxic masculinity, from these patriarchal systems, protect ourselves, uplift our community, continue to lift up our Black women. That's kind of the exact thing that Megan was going through, because this episode was talking about, you know, freeing yourselves and stop screaming free Diddy and free Daystar. Because, excuse my language, I apologize, mama, fuck both of them. And I'll probably bleep that out. But anyway, still, the fact that you're on this internet screaming free Tory and free Diddy, despite evidence against them, despite the fact that they have shown violence towards Black women, just really just shows who you truly are. And for me and my sake, I hope that y'all don't go out and make this your identity. Because parasocial relationships are really, really crazy, especially when it comes to famous people. And I guarantee you, none of y'all heard a lick of Tory's music. If Tory's music wasn't popping like that until he got in trouble, now all of a sudden it's free Tory. Megan did not deserve that, and I'm glad that at DreamCon she was well protected. If you saw my clip on Instagram, there was literally a wrestling program that held up an F Tory Lane sign, and we all cheered for it. And Megan is not the only example. Cassie is not the only example. These are just widely popular because these are famous people and their stories are unfortunately currently going through the news cycle. So let's be better, people, especially those of us who are Black people. Let's be better. To know better is to do better. When you have people like Deontay Kyle saying these things, you should really take that to heart, because he knows what he's talking about. Why? Because he reads, because he studies this shit, because he has examples, because he talks to these people. So as he said, use your cabeza, use your brain, use your emotional intelligence, read a damn book. Not just for this situation, but for the Harriet Tubman situation as well. Please, y'all, do something. Go outside, touch grass, go on a walk, but read a book. Please. Anyway, that is all that I have for today's episode. With that, I don't have any new information. All I want to know, and all I want you to know, ladies and gentlemen, is that no matter what the situation, I'm not going to give up. I'm not going to quit. This podcast means too much to me in order for me to just stop what I'm doing. And I love y'all too much. I love the support that I've been getting, and I hope that I can continue to gain support from others as well. And thank you guys for bearing with me as I be honest with myself. You know, I'm only human. I'm not Jesus. I mess up. I'm not perfect. And more often than not, I come close to towing the line on ruining good things when I shouldn't, when there's no need. But sometimes, or in most cases, at least in my case, I tend to get in my own way. So thank you for allowing me to be vulnerable. And I hope that you're able to be vulnerable, not only with yourselves, but with other family as well. And let's heal together. Let's come together so that way we can grow as people and as a society. With that, guys, I haven't done the rundown in a little while, so I am going to go ahead and do this rundown. Let me pull up my list because it has been such a long time since I've read off this list. But anyway, the rundown, of course, is a list of any artists, professionals, or any content creators or podcasts that have supported this podcast or have been a part of this podcast at some point in time. First and foremost, shout out to the crew, It Mob. 3 of us were out there for DreamCon. We got a chance to kick it. I say 4 of us and some change. So definitely shout out to the gang, man. If y'all really want an actual recap of DreamCon, I highly implore you to go listen to Inside a Mind of a Blurred. Our DreamCon episode actually dropped last week. So please be sure that you tune into that. I'm not going to do a DreamCon recap because it was already done before I could get on this mic. So this is the episode that you get. It is what it is. Also, shout out, of course, to Mike Check, Waifu, man. Big shout out to Polo and Teliano still doing their thing on the seasonal anime. So please be sure that you tune into them. Also, big shout out to Anime After Dark. They are back. That includes Worst Gen and, of course, Blanime Podcast. They had a panel at DreamCon, and it was great to see them in action, and it was great to be a part of that panel. Big shout out to the Truth and Transparency Podcast. Of course, whenever they decide to return, big ups to them. Shout out to Dad Needs to Talk with Rob, the father of Vash. Shout out to Geek Set Podcast, man, especially the Young Deuces. He is doing a lot of great things, and he is speaking to a lot of great people. Please be sure that you tune into that podcast. Anime Junkies 3 Weebs in the podcast. Big shout out to those anime girls. And, of course, shout out to Black Geek Energy because they have been doing some great things as well. For our Black authors, big shout out to K. Renee, Sedona Rose, that's her pen name, and of course Elena Graham, aka Elena. For our Black content creators, shout out to Off Black Mag with Aaron, HBCU Anime with Evan. I haven't seen Evan in a minute. I hope that he's doing well. Shout out to Cerberus Entertainment. Shout out, big shout out to Tatty Poodle. That's my sis. I love her to death. We gotta play Marvel Rivals sometime soon. Again, I'm not playing it on computer though. You will not get me to do that on PC. I will be playing on my PS5. So you're gonna have to deal with that. Big shout out, of course, to the Geechee Gamer. Saw her at DreamCon as well. Also, big shout out to Shelby, aka Simply Janine, with Rose Less Traveled. She's been doing a lot of traveling lately. Please be sure that y'all tune into her TikTok and, of course, her IG for more travel updates. Big shout out to Toasty Marshmallow. Of course, she was doing her thing with the Naruto Orchestra. So big shout out to her. Shout out to Strange Keith, out of the Icons, and he's also been doing some amazing things. Shout out to the Corner 5, not Corner 5, because I was thinking of 5 because she's a part of the Corner 5. Goodness gracious. Anyway, shout out to the Corner 5. That's Simone, Courtney 5, Chris, and Sham. But big shout out to Simone and 5 for having their panels at DreamCon. I know that was an opportunity they will never forget. So big shout out to them. Also, of course, shout out to Scuba Steve and Alpha with Blur Mind Productions. Also, I don't really shout them all out too often, but of course, shout out to I Hate Vonnie and of course, JB versus the World. I really need to add them to the list for real, because they've been on this podcast so many times because we do our wrestling episodes with them. So big shout out to the wrestling crew, aka Wrestling Is For You Know What's, and shout out to the That You Should Know, Omar Solo, for his I Just Can't Wait to Sing Disney panel that he had at DreamCon. Also amazing. Once again, year after year, he needs to be on the main stage. He needs to have it just needs to be packed out every single time he decides to do it, if he decides to do it again. But anyway, big shout out to him. He's also part of the wrestling crew whenever he gets the opportunity to come for episodes. So big shout out to him. Also, big shout out to Wave God. He continues to stream to this day and continues to gain an audience. And of course, he has his little spaces on the Twitterverse, which I have been trying to avoid lately because, again, Twitter is a cesspool. But anyway, yeah, shout out to these dope creators, man. Like y'all know y'all my homies, y'all my niggas for real, and I love y'all. For our black artists, of course, shout out to NASA, Scoozy, Jack Union, Phil.me, Ellis Quinn, RJ Stackhouse, Quarter, Tyrone League Jr., Ari Lachelle, Zach Hines and Fortresses, Elena, Zaynab, and of course Imogen. And for our black businesses, already paid by Dre, Freshness, Righteous Minds by Timo, Cases Brand by Christina, Cream Cosmetics by Naima, Mindful Money by Tremaine. Big shout out to Studio Maho with Pat and Yin. They had an amazing DreamCon weekend with all the parties that they were hosting. So big shout out to Studio Maho. In retrospect, also that means shout out to Miss Daphne Benford Smith with Hold On Law. You know, she's also still doing her thing with Studio Maho as well. Big shout out to She Designs Too with Aaron, Black Magic / Luke Wants with Lone T, H4 created by Zenobia, Real Estate Stone by Meredith, so by Belle Mama Mariah, Blur, I already said Blur My Studios, Scrappy Sentiment with Sappy. So our very own Sappy, of course, continues to hold her own business. So big shout out to her. All right, now that is done, be sure that you like, share, and subscribe to the Chaotic Culture Podcast on your favorite DSP. Once again, please be sure that you subscribe to the Patreon. That's patreon.com/Chaotic Culture Pod for early episodes, bonus episodes, and some bonus content that you will more than likely not see on YouTube or anything like that. I do most of my music reviews on there. I will live stream it on YouTube, and then it immediately goes to Patreon. So, yeah, speaking of reviewing music, yeah, I'm doing Lil Wayne's album, The Carter 6. It's too big for me to ignore. So I'm going to listen to it. I'm going to reserve my own judgments, and I hope and pray that it isn't as bad as it seems. Anyway, please be sure that you follow us on Facebook at Chaotic Culture Podcast. Please be sure that you follow us on Instagram and Threads at Chaotic Culture Pod. You can follow us on Twitter /X at Chaotic Culture 1. And of course, you can follow us on Blue Sky at chaoticculture.bsky.social. If we ever get a TikTok, I mean, we'll be there. I guess eventually. I really don't want to do it, but somebody else will have to. I'm gonna have to get a social media manager to take care of that because I do not want to do TikTok. I'll leave that in their hands. Anyway, you can follow me, Ked the Pro. That's K3D the Pro on all social media. Of course, you can follow Law at L.JR_96 on Instagram and Law96_ on Twitter. You can follow Sappy at Scratch14 on all social media. You can follow Scuba Steve at Scuba Steve 1428 on all social media. You can follow Miss Nasa at I'm Nakaso on all social media. And of course, you can follow Jay at Jaylee Trey on all social media. That being said, this has been another edition of the Chaotic Culture Podcast. Thank you for tuning in for 5 years, and I pray that we get a chance to go 5 more. Sheesh, man, if I can continue doing this well into my 40s or 50s, then I mean that shows real longevity for real. But thank you guys for rocking with me thus far. I pray that whatever journey that you are going through, that you will reach and achieve your success. Just remember that the dream only dies when you stop trying to achieve the dream. Only you can get in the way of yourself. No matter whether the obstacles are thrown your way, the dream doesn't die unless you kill the dream itself. Anyway, once again, guys, thank you. Thank you so much. As always, remember, embrace the culture. Chaos rules. Be blessed. Be safe. God is love. I'm out of here. Deuces.
So what's the word?
You are now tuned in to the Chaotic Culture Podcast. And